The cargo hold smelled like burnt metal and fear. Marcus Chin sat on a metal crate, his small hands gripping the edges so hard his knuckles turned white. He was 8 years old and he was alone. Around him, massive creatures moved with careful precision. Dragons. Not the fairy tale kind from Earth's old stories but real ones. Their scales gleamed like polished starship hulls, deep reds, brilliant golds, cold silvers. They stood on 2 powerful legs, their wings folded against their backs, and when they spoke, their voices rumbled like distant thunder. Marcus had watched his home burn 3 days ago. The colony ship Perseverance had carried 2,000 humans to a new world. Now those 2,000 were ash floating in space and Marcus was the only one left. The Dragon fleet had thought they were destroying an enemy vessel. They had been wrong. Bring the child forward, a voice boomed through the chamber. 2 dragon guards, each 3 times Marcus's height, gestured for him to walk. He stood on shaking legs and moved toward the center of the vast hall. The floor beneath his feet was polished stone that reflected the glow of plasma torches lining the walls. Ahead of him sat the high court. 7 dragons arranged in a semicircle, each one ancient beyond measure. Their eyes held the weight of centuries, and when they looked at Marcus, he felt like an insect being examined under glass. The largest dragon, his scales the color of old bronze, leaned forward. Human child. I am Emperor Zarnketh. We did not know your people existed. Your ship entered restricted space without proper identification. Our defense fleet responded as protocol demands. Marcus said nothing. His throat was too tight to speak. However, the Emperor continued, the law is clear. We destroyed your home. You are orphaned by dragon action. You may request compensation, accept placement with a foster family, or ask for mercy. Speak now. The other dragons waited. Some looked bored. Others appeared genuinely sympathetic. One, a younger dragon with brilliant blue scales, watched Marcus with curious intensity. Marcus took a deep breath. His voice came out smaller than he wanted, but it came out steady. I invoke the trial of worthiness. Silence crashed through the hall like a physical force. An older dragon with gray scales laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. The child knows nothing of our laws. He speaks nonsense. But Emperor Zarnketh raised one clawed hand. No. The law is ancient but it stands. Any being who loses everything to dragon action may challenge for status through the trial. It has not been invoked in 3,000 years, but it is valid. Marcus had found the law on a data pad during the journey here. One of the guards had left it where he could read it, perhaps out of pity. Marcus had read everything he could about dragon culture in those 3 days. He had nothing else to do but learn. You understand what you request? The Emperor asked. You would attempt to prove yourself worthy of nobility? Of a crown? You, a human child whose species has barely learned to cross the stars. Yes, Marcus said. His fear was still there, huge and heavy in his chest, but he pushed words past it anyway. My people are gone. I cannot bring them back. But I can prove they were worth something. That we are worth something. The blue-scaled dragon leaned forward, fascinated. Several others exchanged glances. The gray dragon who had laughed now scowled deeply. Emperor Zarnketh studied Marcus for a long moment. Then something that might have been a smile crossed his massive face. Very well. You will have 3 cycles of our smallest moon. Prove your intelligence, your courage, your ability to lead. Fail, and you will be given a modest settlement and forgotten. Succeed, and we shall see. The Emperor struck the floor with his tail. The sound boomed like a gong. Let the trial begin. Marcus stood alone before the dragon court, a small human child in a hall built for giants. He did not bow. He did not cry. He simply nodded once, accepting the challenge. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the grief and fear, something hard and determined took root. They had taken everything from him. Now he would take something back. Not through revenge but through something far more powerful. He would make them see him. Make them see humanity. And he would not stop until they did. 3 years had passed like water through clenched fists. Marcus was 11 now, taller but still small compared to the dragonkin students who filled the Imperial Academy halls. His hands were calloused from work, his body lean from constant training, and his eyes held a focus that made even some adults uncomfortable. The academy was carved into the side of a mountain, its halls wide enough for dragons to spread their wings. Marcus had not been accepted as a student. He was a servant, assigned to clean training rooms, carry equipment, and stay invisible. The dragonkin made sure he understood his place. Move, human, a young dragon named Tharks snarled, shoving past Marcus in the corridor. Books scattered across the floor. Other students laughed as they walked by, their claws clicking on stone. Marcus knelt and gathered the books without a word. He had learned that anger was a luxury he could not afford. Instead he watched. He learned. Every insult taught him about dragon pride. Every shove revealed their balance points. Every laugh showed him who the leaders were and who just followed. In the evenings, when the Dragonkin students rested in their luxury quarters, Marcus trained alone in the lower practice halls. He ran until his lungs burned. He studied combat forms in front of cracked mirrors. He could never match their strength, but he could be faster, smarter, more determined. "You are wasting your time," a voice said one night. Marcus turned to see a Dragon King girl sitting in the shadows. Her scales were a dull green, and one of her wings hung at an odd angle, clearly damaged beyond healing. He recognized her, Syra, the one other students mocked as the cripple. "Maybe," Marcus replied, returning to his exercises. "But it is my time to waste." Syra limped closer, watching him practice a defensive stance. "You hold your left side too high. A dragon would exploit that gap." She demonstrated with her good wing. "Like this." Marcus adjusted. "Thank you." Over the following weeks, Syra returned. Then others came, a dragonkin named Rook whose fire burned too weak for him to ever become a warrior, and Mira whose scales were considered an unlucky color. The outcasts, the forgotten ones. Marcus shared his food with them, listened to their stories, and trained alongside them. "Why do you help us?" Rook asked one evening. "We are failures. Association with us lowers your standing." Marcus smiled grimly. "My standing cannot get lower. And you are not failures. You are dragons who know what it means to struggle. That makes you stronger than those who have never fallen." The first trial came without warning. Marcus was summoned to the combat arena where the entire academy had gathered. Emperor Zarnketh himself sat in the observation box, watching with unreadable eyes. "The human will face Tharks in combat," the combat master announced. "He must survive 3 minutes. Begin." Tharks grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. He was twice Marcus's size, trained since hatching in dragon combat arts. The moment the bell rang, he charged. Marcus did not try to win. He dodged, rolled, and absorbed blows that would have killed a normal child. His body had grown tough from years of hard work. Each time Tharks struck, Marcus studied the pattern. The wind-up before the tail swipe. The slight dip of the shoulder before a charge. The predictable overextension after a miss. He took a brutal hit to the ribs and went down. The crowd roared. But Marcus stood again, blood on his lip, eyes clear and focused. He was not fighting Tharks. He was learning him. When the 3 minutes ended, Marcus could barely stand. Tharks had not broken a sweat. The dragon students laughed and cheered for their champion. But in the observation box, Emperor Zarnketh leaned forward slightly. The blue-scaled princess beside him whispered, "Father, did you see?" He was not trying to survive. He was studying. Marcus limped from the arena, supported by Syra and Rook. His body was broken, but his mind was full. He had data now. Patterns. Weaknesses. "You lost," Mira said sadly. Marcus shook his head, wincing at the pain. "No. I learned. There is a difference." That night, while the academy slept, Marcus filled a notebook with observations. Tharks' fighting style represented standard dragon combat doctrine. If Marcus could solve Tharks, he could solve them all. It would take time. It would take pain. But time and pain were resources Marcus had in abundance. 3 years remained in his trial. He smiled despite his swollen jaw. Let them think him beaten. Let them laugh. While they celebrated, he would prepare. And when the time came, they would see what a human could become when he refused to break. Marcus was 14 when the galaxy learned to fear something other than dragons. The Void Swarm arrived without warning, consuming 3 outer colonies in a matter of weeks. They were like nothing the Empire had faced before, silicon-based creatures that moved through space in massive hive clusters, their bodies immune to the plasma fire that had made dragons unstoppable for millennia. The High Court gathered in emergency session. Marcus stood in the back of the chamber, officially present as a servant but actually listening to every word. He had earned that privilege through 3 years of proving he could be invisible when needed. "We send the 4th Fleet," Lord Voctor declared, his red scales gleaming with confidence. "Overwhelming force. We burn them from the stars." Emperor Zarnketh nodded slowly. "Prepare the assault." Marcus watched the tactical display floating above the council table. The Void Swarm's movement patterns were there for anyone to see. They swarmed toward heat signatures. They literally followed the fire. The dragon fleets were flying straight into a trap and no one saw it. He should stay quiet. Speaking out of turn could end his trial in disgrace. But 200,000 dragons lived on those colonies, along with millions of other species under imperial protection. They are attracted to heat, Marcus said. The entire chamber fell silent. Every dragon head turned toward him. Lord Voktor's eyes blazed. The servant speaks? Remove him. Wait. Princess Kirazeth, now grown into a formidable dragon with brilliant blue scales, raised her hand. Let him speak, father. He has earned that much. Emperor Zarnketh gestured for Marcus to approach. Explain, human. Quickly. Marcus walked to the tactical display, his heart hammering but his voice steady. The swarm does not chase your ships. They chase your fire. Every battle report shows the same pattern. They converge on plasma signatures. Your strongest weapon is marking you as targets. Ridiculous, Voktor snapped. Fire is the dragon way. It has served us for 10,000 years. Against enemies that could burn, Marcus replied. These cannot. Sir, permission to show alternative tactics. Kirazeth looked at her father. The emperor, ancient and weary, nodded once. Marcus manipulated the display with trembling hands. Cold warfare. Kinetic weapons. Metal slugs accelerated to high velocity. Cryo-based missiles that freeze rather than burn. And most importantly, silence. No plasma signatures to attract them. We make ourselves invisible to their senses. The court erupted in outraged voices. Cowardice. Dishonorable. This is not the dragon way. But one voice cut through the chaos. How certain are you? Princess Kirazeth asked. Marcus met her eyes. 70%, Your Highness. But your current strategy has a 0% chance of success. The Fourth Fleet will be destroyed within 2 days of engagement. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. Kirazeth, you will take Battle Group Theta. The human will serve as tactical advisor. You have one engagement to prove this theory. Fail and we return to traditional methods. Lord Voktor looked like he wanted to breathe fire on them both, but he bowed stiffly and said nothing. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the warship Stormclaw, watching the Void's Warm approach on sensors. Battle Group Theta consisted of 20 ships, their plasma weapons powered down, their engines running cold. They drifted like debris through space. They are passing us, Kirazeth whispered. By the ancestors, they truly cannot see us. Wait for my mark, Marcus said quietly. His hands worked the tactical display, calculating trajectories. The swarm was focused on a distant star, its heat drawing them like moths to flame. Now, Marcus commanded. Kinetic barrage. All ships. The dragon crews, trained for honorable flame combat, had struggled with this silent killing. But they were professionals. Metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through the swarm formations. The creatures scattered, confused, unable to locate their attackers. Cryo missiles on the clusters, Marcus continued, his voice calm despite the chaos. Target the dense formations. Frozen projectiles shattered the silicon creatures, their bodies vulnerable to extreme cold. The swarm tried to adapt, tried to find the enemy, but they were fighting blind against an opponent they could not sense. In 40 minutes it was over. The swarm scattered and fled. Not a single Imperial ship was lost. The bridge was silent with shock. Then Kirazeth began to laugh, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. The human child won. Against an enemy we could not burn, the human found the way. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. No, Your Highness. We won. Your crews trusted tactics they were not trained for. That took courage. When they returned to the homeworld, Emperor Zarnketh granted Marcus the title of war strategist. Lord Voktor's expression promised that this victory had made Marcus more enemies than friends among the traditional houses. But Marcus did not care about making friends in high places. He cared about proving that intelligence could triumph where strength alone failed. The Orphan had found his weapon, and it was sharper than any claw. Marcus was 16 when Lord Voktor made his move. The ancient red dragon had waited 2 years, watching the human gain influence and respect. The victory against the Void's Warm had made Marcus a symbol, proof that the old ways were not the only ways. For traditionalists like Voktor, that made him dangerous. The challenge came during a formal court session. Voktor rose, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. I accuse the human of dishonoring the Codex. He won through deception and cowardice, not strength. He is unworthy of any title, let alone the crown he seeks. Marcus stood calmly, though his heart raced. He had expected this. The trial of worthiness, Voktor continued, demands proof of leadership. I propose a test. Give the human a colony to rule. 1 year. If he succeeds, his claim stands. If he fails, he is exiled forever. Emperor Zarnketh considered this. Which colony do you suggest, Lord Voktor? The red dragon smiled, showing too many teeth. Zathros 4. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Marcus felt his stomach drop. Zathros 4 was dying. A mining world with depleted resources, failing infrastructure, and constant riots between the dragon overseers and the workers. 3 governors had failed there in the last decade. Princess Kirazeth stood. Father, this is a trap. Zathros 4 is ungovernable. Which makes it a perfect test, Voktor said smoothly. Unless the princess believes the human is not capable? Marcus knew the game. Refuse and he looked weak. Accept and he walked into certain failure. But there was no real choice. I accept. 1 month later, Marcus arrived on Zathros 4. The planet was gray and industrial, its surface scarred by mines. The previous governor, a dragon named Korth, met him at the landing pad with barely concealed contempt. You have 1 year, human. Try not to die in the first riot. Korth handed him a data pad with colony records and departed on the next ship. Marcus reviewed the data in the governor's residence, a crumbling building that leaked when it rained. The colony was home to 15,000 workers, insectoid Chitali miners with hard shells and compound eyes, and amphibious Krell engineers whose webbed hands could work in the flooded lower tunnels. Both species hated the dragon overseers. Both species hated each other even more. The mines were declared empty. Production had dropped 80% in 2 years. Food shipments were irregular. Medical supplies were non-existent. And someone, Marcus suspected Voktor's agents, had been bribing officials to skim resources. On his 3rd day, a riot broke out in the western quarter. Workers throwing rocks at overseer barracks. Marcus walked into the middle of it unarmed. Stop, he shouted. A Chitali worker, his shell scarred from years underground, clicked his mandibles in anger. You are just another dragon puppet. You know nothing of our suffering. You are right, Marcus said simply. So teach me. The riot paused, confused. Marcus sat down on the ground, cross-legged, looking up at the workers. I have 1 year to fix this place. I cannot do it by ordering you around. I need to understand what is actually wrong. Not what the reports say. What you say. The Chitali worker stared. Slowly, suspicious, he sat as well. Then others. For 3 hours Marcus listened. The mines were not empty. Previous governors had only looked for the valuable crystals dragons prized. But there were rare earth elements deeper down, elements useful for manufacturing. The Krell knew where they were but had never been asked. The food shipments were irregular because the distribution center manager was corrupt, selling supplies on the black market. The medical supplies were diverted to dragon colonies because non-dragon lives were considered less valuable. Marcus spent the next month doing something no dragon governor had ever done. He worked in the mines. He repaired tunnels alongside Krell engineers. He ate the same food as the workers. He learned their languages, their customs, their grievances. Then he started making changes. He fired the corrupt distribution manager and replaced him with a Chitali who had proven honest. He reorganized mining operations based on Krell recommendations. He established a council where workers could vote on policy changes. He gave them shares in the mine profits. The dragon overseers protested. Marcus quietly removed the ones who could not adapt and promoted those willing to treat workers with respect. By month 8, production had tripled. By month 10, Zathros 4 was reporting profits for the first time in 5 years. Workers from other colonies requested transfers there. But Lord Voktor watched from afar, his rage growing. The human was not just succeeding. He was showing there was another way to rule. A way that did not require dragon dominance. And that, Voktor knew, threatened everything the empire was built upon. The human had to be stopped. Permanently. Marcus stood before the high court once more, 17 years old and no longer the frightened child who had first entered this chamber. Behind him stood delegations from Zathros 4, Chitali miners and Krell engineers who had traveled across space to witness the final judgment. The chamber was packed with dragons from every noble house, all waiting to see if the impossible would happen. Emperor Zarnketh sat on his throne, ancient eyes studying Marcus carefully. The year has passed. Zathros 4 thrives under your leadership. Lord Voktor, do you acknowledge the human has met your challenge? The red dragon's scales seemed to darken with barely controlled fury. He has made the colony profitable through methods that undermine dragon authority. He gives power to lesser species. He teaches them they do not need us. He teaches them they can work with us, Princess Kirazeth countered. There is a difference. Vaktor's tail lashed. The vote then. Does this human earn a crown or do we preserve what we are? The night before the vote, Marcus could not sleep. He walked the palace gardens under twin moons, thinking of his parents, his people, everyone he had lost. He had come so far, but was it enough? A shadow moved. Too late, Marcus realized his mistake. He was alone, unguarded. Lord Vaktor emerged from the darkness, his eyes glowing with rage. You have destroyed everything, the red dragon hissed. You show the Empire we are not necessary. That cannot stand. Vaktor lunged, claws extended. Marcus rolled, but there was nowhere to run. Then bodies crashed between them. Syra with her damaged wing, Rook breathing his weak fire, Mira blocking with her unlucky scales. His friends from the academy, the outcasts who had become his first allies. You face all of us, Syra growled. Workers from Zathros 4 poured into the garden, armed with mining tools. Even Princess Kirazeth arrived with her personal guard. Vaktor, cornered and outnumbered, fled into the night. The next morning the vote proceeded. Marcus stood in the center of the chamber and did something no one expected. He spoke not for himself, but for the Empire. I did not come here seeking power, Marcus said, his voice carrying through the hall. I came because I lost everything and I needed to prove my people mattered. But I have learned something in these 9 years. This empire is strong, yes. But strength alone cannot hold the galaxy together. He gestured to the workers behind him. The void's warm was just the beginning. New threats will come. Threats that cannot be burned or conquered by force. You need allies who bring different strengths. The Chitali see in darkness where dragons cannot. The Krell can work in environments that would kill you. Every species has value. Lord Vaktor burst into the chamber, scales scorched and furious. Enough words. By ancient law, I challenge the human to trial by combat. Let the strong decide as it has always been. The court fell silent. Combat with Vaktor meant death. The ancient dragon was a legendary warrior. Marcus looked at Emperor Zarnketh. The old dragon nodded slowly. There was no choice, the law was absolute. They faced each other in the combat arena. Vaktor was 3 times Marcus's size, his scales like armor, his claws like swords. The moment the bell rang, he attacked with overwhelming fury. But Marcus had spent 9 years learning. He dodged using Syra's techniques. He read the attack patterns from 1,000 hours of study. When Vaktor breathed fire, Marcus activated a kinetic shield, legal under combat rules but considered cowardly by traditional dragons. The ancient dragon exhausted himself against technology and tactics he had never bothered to learn. Marcus used the arena itself, leading Vaktor into overextensions, making him waste energy on attacks that hit nothing but air. Finally Vaktor stumbled, breathing hard. Marcus had an opening, a clear strike to the throat that would end it. Every dragon in the arena expected him to take it. Marcus lowered his weapon. I yield the killing blow. Gasps echoed through the chamber. You can still choose, Marcus said quietly. Help build something new or step aside. But I will not kill you for clinging to the past. That would make me no better than what I fight against. Vaktor stared, disbelief in his ancient eyes. Slowly, grudgingly, he bowed his head in defeat. Emperor Zarnketh rose. The human has proven his worth beyond any doubt. Not through killing but through wisdom. I grant him the title of Duke of the Frontier Marches. More importantly, he is named Ambassador of Species Integration. He will help us build an empire of partners, not just subjects. Marcus knelt, not in submission but in respect. The orphan who had lost everything now wore a crown. But more than that, he had changed the galaxy's future. That evening, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the dragon capital. Princess Kirazeth joined him, her wing brushing his shoulder gently. You did it, she said softly. Marcus shook his head. We did it. Every outcast, every worker, every dragon willing to see beyond tradition. They did this. Above them, human ships flew in formation with dragon fleets for the first time as equals. Below, representatives from dozens of species gathered for the first integrated council. The orphan had claimed his crown. Not through fear, but through proving that the greatest strength was not in domination but in unity. The stars belonged to everyone now.